Take the main keys, Maya, I said, sliding the encrypted flash drives across my desk. 3 weeks in London is a long time. Everything advanced tech is in your hands now. Maya smiled, her eyes shining as she reached over and laced her fingers with mine. I've got this, Leo. Focus on securing those investors. You built the core architecture of this company. Let me handle the home front. I'll make sure our launch stays on track. I trust you, I replied, leaning in to kiss her forehead. You're not just my co-founder, Maya. You're my future wife. I couldn't do this without you. Now go, she laughed softly, adjusting my tie. Your flight leaves in 2 hours. When I boarded the plane to London, I felt completely secure. Advanced tech was our child. We had spent 4 years grinding in a tiny basement before creating our proprietary cloud architecture. It was poised to revolutionize data security, making us millions. More importantly, Maya and I were going to build our life on that success. By day 4 in London, the cracks began to show. I sat in my hotel room with my laptop open, watching the clock tick past our scheduled video call. 5 minutes turned into 30. Finally, I dialed her cell phone directly. It rang 4 times before going straight to voicemail. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a short text. Sorry, Leo. Super busy with local clients. Can't talk tonight. Love you. I frowned, typing back instantly. Is everything okay with the financial updates? I need the Q3 metrics for tomorrow's pitch. No reply. By the second week, her sudden silence became a pattern. She missed 3 consecutive calls, always citing emergency meetings or extreme fatigue. When she did answer, her tone was cold, clipped, and distracted. Maya, what is going on? I asked during a brief 5-minute call on day 12. You sound completely detached. Did something happen with the team? Nothing happened, Leo, she said, her voice sharp with uncharacteristic annoyance. I'm just running a multi-million-dollar company by myself while you're off having dinners in Mayfair. I'm exhausted. I'm working 16-hour days pitching to venture capitalists. I shot back, taking a breath to calm my rising anger. Look, I'm sorry. We're both stressed. Just send me the updated server metrics so I can finalize the European deal. I'll get to it when I have time, she muttered. I have to go. Someone is at the door. Click. She hung up before I could say another word. Suspicion coiled tight in my stomach. Something was wrong. Maya never handled business like this. I opened my encrypted messaging application and dialed Elena Cruz, our lead software engineer. She answered on the second ring, her face appearing on my screen. She looked pale, her dark eyes darting nervously around her home office. Leo, Elena whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Are you on a secure line? Yes, I replied, my pulse instantly racing. Elena, what's going on at the office? Maya has been dodging my calls for a week. Elena swallowed hard, leaning closer to her web camera. Leo, I wasn't sure if I should call you. I was scared I might be misinterpreting things, but it's bad. Speak clearly, Elena. What's bad? Maya has been locking herself in your office every night after 6, Elena said, her words coming out in a rushed whisper. And she's not alone. My throat went bone dry. Who is she with? Julian Ross. Elena dropped the name like a bomb. I stared at the screen, stunned into total silence. Julian Ross was the CEO of Apex Dynamics, our biggest rival. He had tried to buy us out 2 years ago, and when I refused, he swore he would destroy Vance Tech. Julian? I spat the name like poison. What is he doing in my office? I don't know, Elena said, her eyes glistening with worry. She disabled the security cameras in the hallway twice this week. But I ran a background diagnostic on our central server an hour ago because the system bandwidth was lagging. Leo, someone is pulling files. Which files? I demanded, my hands gripping the edges of my desk so hard my knuckles turned white. Your private partition, Elena replied softly, looking at me with pure pity. The core algorithm. The secret source code. The entire heart of Vance Tech. That's impossible, I stammered, my head spinning. That partition requires my personal biometrics or the dual encryption master key. The only other person who has that key is Maya. Elena finished my sentence. Hold on, I gasped, blood rushing in my ears. Are you absolutely certain about this? I'm sending you the server logs right now, Elena said, typing rapidly on her keyboard. Check your secure inbox. A notification popped up on my laptop screen. I opened the file with shaking fingers. Line after line of data code filled the display, showing a massive, unauthorized transfer originating directly from my personal drive to an unlisted external hard drive. The access timestamp was 45 minutes ago. The user credentials belong to Maya Lin. She's giving it all to him, Leo, Elena whispered softly through the speakers. She's handing Julian everything you built. The world seemed to stop spinning. The walls of my London hotel room caved in on me. The woman I trusted with my life, the woman whose finger carried my grandmother's engagement ring, was systematically ripping my life apart while I was thousands of miles away. Leo? Are you still there? Elena's voice broke through the deafening silence in my mind. I closed my eyes, taking a long, ragged breath. The crippling heartbreak surged through my chest, but behind it, a cold, sharp rage began to take root. I'm here, I said, my voice eerily calm. What do we do? Should I lock the servers? No, I replied, opening my eyes. Don't touch a single thing. Let her think we know nothing. Leo, she's stealing your life. I know, I whispered, looking out the window at the rainy London skyline. And she's going to pay for every single bite. I landed in Seattle 24 hours early, wearing dark sunglasses and keeping my jacket hood pulled low. Instead of returning to the home Maya and I shared, I checked into a dim hotel room 3 miles from Vance Tech. My chest burned with a suffocating mix of betrayal and raw grief, but my mind was sharpening into pure focus. I dialed my father, Marcus Vance. He answered on the first ring. Leo? Aren't you supposed to be in London? My father asked, his sharp legal mind instantly picking up on my tone. What happened? Dad, Maya is stealing the company, I said quietly, pacing the small hotel room. She's transferring our core algorithm to Julian Ross right now. Silence stretched across the line before my father let out a long, slow breath. Are you absolutely sure? Elena caught her red-handed, I replied, my voice shaking slightly. Server logs, access credentials, late-night meetings at our office. She sold me out to Apex. Take a breath, son, Marcus said, his voice turning into the steel-hard tone he used in courtrooms. Do not confront her. Not yet. If you confront her now, it becomes a messy he-said-she said battle over intellectual property. We need total victory. She's getting everything I built, Dad. How do I sit here and do nothing? You aren't doing nothing, Marcus countered firmly. Have you forgotten the founding bylaws we drafted 4 years ago? Section 12, paragraph 4? I stopped pacing, blinking as the memory surfaced through my rage. The fail-safe clause. Exactly, my father said. When we incorporated Vance Tech, I insisted on inserting an irrevocable fraud contingency. If any co-founder attempts an unauthorized transfer of core intellectual property to a competitor, their corporate authority is automatically revoked, and their equity legally reverts to the company, effective the moment an illegal sale contract is executed. So if she signs a deal with Julian? I murmured, the trap coming into clear focus. If she signs an actual acquisition contract with Apex using stolen assets, she locks herself into a felony wire fraud trap, my father finished. She won't just lose her shares, Leo. She will legally hand Apex's money directly into your asset recovery vault while walking straight into a prison cell. I need eyes on them, I said. I need to know how far along they are. Call Elena, Marcus instructed. Use the internal security feeds. Watch them, but don't move until the ink is dry. An hour later, Elena routed a live video feed from Apex Dynamics' top-floor executive suite directly to my laptop screen. I sat in the dark hotel room, staring at the monitor with cold detachment. On screen, Maya was standing beside Julian Ross in his glass-walled office. She was holding a champagne flute, laughing at something he said. Julian pulled out a leather-bound folder and laid it on his mahogany desk. Is the code fully verified? Julian's voice came through crisp and clear over Elena's audio tap. Every line, Maya replied, her voice smooth, completely devoid of guilt. Leo's architecture is flawless. With this, Apex will dominate the cloud security market instantly. The press won't even care where it came from once we announce the buyout. And your condition? Julian asked, leaning back against his desk. $10 million wired directly to my offshore account, Maya said, her eyes flashing with ambition. Plus a permanent seat on your board of directors. I'm done playing second-in-command to Leo. Julian let out a dry laugh. You really have no sentimentality for him, do you? You two were supposed to get married in 3 months. Maya took a slow sip of her champagne, her expression chillingly calm. Leo is brilliant, Julian, but he's cautious. He wanted to build slowly, ethically. I want power and I want it now. He'll recover. He's smart enough to start over. Listening to her words, the final lingering fragment of my love for Maya died right then and there. I stared at the screen, my eyes narrowing. She really thinks I'm just going to roll over, I whispered to the empty room. My phone chimed with a private text from Elena. Julian's legal team just finalized the acquisition documents. They are scheduling a live public signing ceremony for tomorrow evening at the Tech Summit Gala. I immediately picked up the phone and called my father back. Dad, I said, my voice deadpan and icy. They're signing the buyout at the Summit Gala tomorrow night. Are you ready to stop them? Marcus asked. No, I answered, a dark smile touching my lips for the first time in days. I want them to sign it on live television. I want every investor, every journalist, and the entire tech industry to watch them take credit for my work. Leo, that's high risk, my father warned. If they sign, the ownership legally shifts for a split second before the clause activates. And that split second is when the trap snaps shut, I replied. Julian is going to wire $10 million into a company structure that will instantly freeze his access and route the fraud report to the federal authorities. Maya thinks she's selling my life's work for a seat at his table. And what will she actually get? Marcus asked softly. A front row seat to her own destruction, I said. Tell Detective Carter to have his team standing by at the gala. Tomorrow night, Maya and Julian sign their own arrest warrants. The grand ballroom of the Bellevue Convention Center was packed with reporters, venture capitalists, and industry titans. Crystal chandeliers cast a bright light over the crowd, but I stayed in the dark balcony corners, wearing a sleek black tuxedo that blended into the background. Down on the main stage, Maya looked radiant in a sweeping emerald dress. Standing beside her was Julian Ross, smiling warmly as camera flashes illuminated their faces. Ladies and gentlemen, Julian's voice boomed through the surrounding loudspeakers. Tonight, Apex Dynamics marks a monumental leap forward in cloud security infrastructure. We are officially absorbing Vance Tech in a multi-million-dollar acquisition. Applauses echoed across the room. I gripped the wooden balcony railing, my knuckles turning white as my chest tightened with bitter rage. Julian gestured toward Maya with a theatrical flourish. And to tell you more about this breakthrough, I present the true mind behind Vance Tech's revolutionary architecture. Our new executive vice president, Maya Lin. Maya stepped up to the podium, beaming brightly as the applause swelled again. She adjusted the microphone, her eyes sweeping over the sea of faces, oblivious to my presence above. Thank you, Julian, Maya began, her voice steady and brimming with confidence. 4 years, cloud security has been bogged down by slow, overly cautious methods. When I designed our new system, I knew we needed something bold. Something that pushes past old boundaries. When I designed our new system, the words cut through me like a razor blade. I remembered the endless nights I spent in our cramped apartment, surviving on cold takeout while coding every single algorithm line. I remembered her holding my hand, telling me I was a genius who would change the tech world. Innovation isn't about standing still, Maya continued, gesturing gracefully toward the large screens behind her. It's about vision. I built this architecture from the ground up to ensure absolute protection and seamless scaling. Today, by partnering with Apex Dynamics, my vision finally reaches its full potential. She didn't mention my name once. She wiped my entire existence from 4 years of hard work with a casual smile. Elena slipped quietly onto the balcony beside me, her phone glowing softly in her hand. She's really taking full credit, Leo, she whispered, her voice filled with disgust. Not even a nod to your contribution. It doesn't matter, I replied, my voice dropping to a low, icy murmur. Let her talk. The higher she climbs right now, the harder she falls. Detective Carter and his officers are in position at the exits, Elena noted, tapping her screen. The moment Julian authorizes the capital transfer, the legal triggers will go live. Is Protocol Zero ready on your end? I asked, looking down at the stage as Julian stepped back up to join Maya at a signing table placed in the center. Standing by, Elena confirmed. The second you give the word, our internal network overrides their presentation feed and locks their account routing. On stage, 2 legal assistants brought out a thick leather folder containing the acquisition documents. Julian pulled a golden fountain pen from his breast pocket, turning to Maya with a confident smirk. With this signature, Julian announced into his lapel mic, Apex Dynamics officially acquires full ownership of Vance Tech's architecture, and $10 million will be transferred to our co-founder. Maya picked up her pen, her hand completely steady. She signed her name across the bottom of the page, handing the pen to Julian. He signed with a sharp flourish, then pulled out a secure digital tablet to authorize the financial wire transfer. It's done, Julian declared, holding up the signed contract to a barrage of flashing press cameras. The transfer is processing. The room erupted into cheers. Maya wrapped her arms around Julian in a joyful hug, laughing as the photographers snapped away. I pulled out my phone. My heart hammered against my ribs, not from panic but from cold, absolute clarity. I opened a private text thread with Elena and typed a single line. Execute Protocol 0. Sending it now, Elena whispered beside me. Down on stage, Julian's digital tablet suddenly chimed with a loud, harsh warning tone. At the exact same moment, the massive display screens behind them flickered violently. The bright corporate slides of Apex Dynamics vanished, replaced instantly by a flashing red alert box that read, "Critical error, unauthorized transaction blocked. Account assets frozen pending fraud investigation." The loud applause in the ballroom sputtered and died out as people noticed the giant screens. Julian's confident smile vanished. He stared at his tablet in confusion, tapping the screen frantically. "What is this? What's going on with the feed?" Maya leaned in, her eyes widening in sudden panic as she stared at the red text. "Julian, what does that mean? Did the transfer fail?" "I don't know," Julian hissed, his cool composure cracking as the murmurs of the crowd grew louder. "The system is completely locked out." I stepped out from the shadows of the balcony and walked toward the grand staircase leading directly down to the main floor. "Elena, call Detective Carter," I said quietly, adjusting my cuffs as I began my descent. "It's time to join the party." The red warnings on the screens flashed repeatedly, casting an eerie crimson glow over the shocked audience. Down in the front row, members of Apex's board of directors jumped out of their seats, shouting over the growing roar of confusion. "What is the meaning of this, Julian?" Arthur Vance, a senior board member, yelled toward the stage. "Why are our primary liquidity accounts flagged for criminal fraud?" Julian's face went entirely pale. "There's been a technical glitch. Everyone stay calm. Our tech team is resolving the server issue right now." He grabbed his tablet, his fingers trembling as he tried to bypass the security wall. But the screen locked completely, displaying a high-priority federal compliance override. "Maya, what did you do?" Julian snapped, turning on her with sharp eyes. "Did you upload a corrupted build?" "No, I didn't." Maya gasped, her voice cracking as she backed away from the podium. "I transferred the exact master files from Leo's private server. Everything was completely clean." "Then why is my $10 million wire bouncebacks triggering an emergency escrow freeze on Apex's main vault?" Julian shouted, losing his temper entirely in front of the press cameras. "The bank just suspended our entire corporate line." "Because she didn't have the authority to sell you those files, Julian," I called out, my voice carrying clearly through the center aisle. The ballroom went dead silent. Reporters turned around, pointing their cameras away from the stage and directly at me as I walked down the main walkway. Maya gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Leo? You're in London." "I came back early," I said, stopping right at the base of the stage steps. "I couldn't miss the launch of the system you claim to have built all by yourself." "Leo, wait," Maya stammered, taking a step toward me, her eyes desperate and wide. "This isn't what it looks like. We can talk about this in private." "There's nothing to talk about in private," I cut her off cold. "You signed an illegal acquisition contract using stolen intellectual property. The moment your signature hit that paper, Section 12, Paragraph 4 of the Vance Tech Founding Charter activated." Julian stepped up to the edge of the stage, his eyes darting between me and the flashing screens. "What charter? What are you talking about, Vance?" "The fail-safe clause," I replied, holding up a thick blue folder containing our original notarized incorporation documents. "Our bylaws state that any unilateral attempt by a co-founder to transfer core assets to a direct competitor instantly revokes their ownership rights and corporate authority." The moment Maya signed that paper, her shares vanished. "That's absurd." Julian spat, though his voice lacked conviction. "I bought those assets in good faith." "Good faith?" I let out a dry, bitter laugh. I pulled out a second stack of paper, holding up the server audit logs for the room to see. These are the digital audit trails. They prove Maya accessed my private drive while I was overseas and transferred the code directly to Apex's internal servers during unauthorized late-night meetings in my office. Murmurs surged through the crowd. Camera flashes went off frantically as reporters captured the server logs in my hands. "You traded stolen code, Julian," I continued, eyeing him directly. "And because you attempted to process a multi-million-dollar wire transfer using illegal assets, banking regulations automatically froze Apex's master accounts pending a formal corporate fraud investigation. You set us up. Maya whispered, tears breaking through her heavy makeup as she realized the depth of the trap. You knew the whole time? You set yourself up, Maya, I said, looking up at her with no hatred left in my eyes, only absolute disappointment. I gave you my trust, my company, and my heart. You traded all of it for a title and a check. Leo, please, she begged, taking another step down the stage stairs toward me. He manipulated me. Julian convinced me that you were holding me back. He promised me. I didn't force you to unlock his private server, Maya. Julian cut in furiously, backing away from her like she was poison. You brought the data to me. You demanded $10 million and a board seat. Shut up, Julian. Maya shrieked, turning on him. You told me we would rule the sector together. Enough, a loud, commanding voice barked from the back of the room. The crowd parted as Detective Carter marched down the aisle, flanked by 4 uniformed police officers. He walked straight past me and stepped up onto the stage platform. Julian Ross, Maya Lin, Detective Carter announced, pulling out 2 formal legal documents. I have warrants for your arrest on charges of grand theft, corporate espionage, and federal wire fraud. Maya fell back against the podium, her strength giving out as she began to sob uncontrollably. Julian stood frozen in place, his face devoid of color as the board members turned their backs on him in disgust. This is a mistake. Julian yelled as an officer grabbed his arms and pulled them behind his back. Call my legal team. Call them right now. Your legal team can't help you clear a hard digital paper trail, Mr. Ross, Detective Carter said calmly, snapping metal handcuffs around Julian's wrists. Another officer stepped up to Maya. Hands behind your back, ma'am. Leo. Maya cried out, looking at me through a blur of tears as the steel cuffs clicked around her wrists. Leo, don't do this. Please. I love you. Tell them it was a mistake. I stood motionless at the bottom of the steps, watching the woman who had built my dreams and then tried to burn them down. It wasn't a mistake, Maya, I said quietly as the officers led her past me. It was a choice. And now you have to live with it. The backstage holding room was quiet, stripped of the glittering lights and cheering crowds of the ballroom. I stood by the frosted glass window, watching police cruisers pull up to the side curb. The door opened with a heavy click. Detective Carter stepped inside, allowing Maya to walk in ahead of him. Her wrists were secured in front of her, her designer gown rumpled, her hair falling out of its neat bun. 5 minutes, Mr. Vance, Detective Carter said, closing the door behind her to give us privacy. Maya took 2 fast steps toward me, her eyes red and swollen. Leo, please, you have to listen to me. You can drop the charges. Tell the police this was just an internal dispute between business partners. An internal dispute? I replied, keeping my voice strictly controlled. You stole our core algorithms and sold them to Apex, Maya. You signed a contract erasing my name from my own life's work. It was Julian, she sobbed, stepping closer until I could see the terror in her eyes. He got into my head, Leo. He kept telling me that Vance Tech was going under, that you were going to leave me behind in London. He manipulated me. I looked at her, searching for any trace of the woman I had fallen in love with 4 years ago. I found none. Julian didn't log into my computer, Maya, I said, pointing a finger at her. Julian didn't bypass my biometrics using my private master keys. You did that. You walked into my office every night after 6, downloaded my files and carried them to him on a silver platter. I was stupid. I was confused, she wailed, shaking her head frantically. I thought I was securing our financial future. I thought if we merged with Apex, we wouldn't have to work 80 hours a week anymore. We could finally buy that house, start a family. Don't bring our future into this, I interrupted sharply, my voice dropping to a harsh whisper. You didn't do this for us. You did this for $10 million and a seat on Julian's board. You did it because you wanted the spotlight without doing the work. That's not true. It is true, I said coldly. When you stood on that stage 20 minutes ago, you didn't mention my name once. You took credit for every line of code I wrote while I was sleeping 4 hours a night on a hotel mattress in London. You didn't look confused then, Maya. You looked thrilled. She froze, the excuses dying on her lips as my words stripped away her defense. Tears rolled down her cheeks, leaving dark tracks through her makeup. The side door swung open again. Detective Carter escorted Julian into the room, followed by 2 uniformed officers. Julian's high-priced suit looked disheveled, but his face was twisted in arrogant fury. Vance? Julian barked, glaring at me over the officer's shoulder. You think this little stunt makes you a winner? My legal team will rip your fail-safe clause to shreds before sunrise. I have 50 attorneys on retainer. Your 50 attorneys can't rewrite federal banking logs, Julian, I said, turning to face him calmly. You initiated a fraudulent multi-million-dollar wire transfer using stolen corporate assets. That isn't a civil dispute. That's a federal felony. I bought those assets from your co-founder. Julian shouted, jerking his chin toward Maya. She had signing authority, which was automatically revoked the second she breached her fiduciary duty under the founding charter. Detective Carter interjected smoothly, pulling out a set of official paper folders. Mr. Ross, we already have the digital audit trail, the transfer records, and the recorded security footage from Vance Tech headquarters. This is ridiculous. Julian spat, turning his glare back onto Maya. She swore to me the code was hers to sell. She lied to me. You knew exactly whose code it was, Julian, I said quietly. You've been trying to steal my work for 3 years. You just used my fiancée to do your dirty work because you couldn't beat me in the market. Julian opened his mouth to shout another threat, but Detective Carter grabbed his arm firmly. That's enough out of you, Mr. Ross. You can explain your strategy to the magistrate judge tomorrow morning. Detective Carter gestured to the 2 uniformed officers. Take them down to the transport vans. As the officers pulled Julian toward the exit, he tried to pull back, swearing loudly, but the police dragged him out into the hallway, his threats fading into the distance. Only Maya remained. She stood completely frozen, staring at me as the weight of her choices settled over her. Leo? She whispered, her voice barely audible. What am I going to do? My career? My life? It's all gone. You traded a real future with someone who loved you for a cheap lie from a man who used you, I said, looking her dead in the eye. You lost everything because you couldn't be loyal. Please, she choked out, fresh tears spilling over. Don't let them take me away. I'm sorry, Leo. I'm so sorry. So am I, Maya, I said softly, taking a step back into the shadow of the room. I'm sorry I ever trusted you. The second officer stepped up, taking her firmly by the arm. Maya didn't fight it. She just wept silently as she was led down the corridor, her high heels clicking loudly against the concrete floor until the heavy double doors closed, leaving me completely alone in the quiet room. 3 months later, the morning sun broke over the Seattle skyline, painting the glass towers in bright silver and gold. I stood on the corner balcony of Vance Tech's top floor, holding a steaming cup of dark coffee. The heavy glass door behind me slid open with a soft hiss. Elena walked out onto the terrace, carrying a thick tablet full of financial projections. Morning, boss, Elena said, a bright, genuine smile on her face. Or should I say, Chief Executive Officer? I smiled back, taking a slow sip of coffee. Just Leo is fine, Elena. You know I hate the formal titles. Well, Leo, you need to take a look at these numbers, she said, tapping the screen and handing the tablet to me. The new cloud security platform went live nationwide at midnight. We've already signed 3 Fortune 500 enterprises, and our user base has doubled overnight. I looked down at the metrics. The numbers were staggering. Vance Tech wasn't just surviving without Maya, it was thriving like never before. You did incredible work finalizing that architecture, Elena, I said, handing the tablet back. Promoting you to Chief Technology Officer was the easiest decision I've ever made. I just built on the foundation you created, she replied softly. You built something real, Leo. That's why it survived. How are the legal teams wrapping things up? I asked, leaning back against the cool steel railing. Elena sighed, her smile turning solemn. My lawyer friend at the courthouse gave me an update this morning. Maya accepted a plea bargain for federal wire fraud and corporate espionage. She was sentenced to 5 years. I stared out at the city, a quiet silence falling between us. Hearing her sentence didn't bring me the wild joy I once thought it might. It just brought a heavy sense of closure. And Julian? I asked. Apex Dynamics is completely finished, Elena answered, shaking her head. When the news broke about his attempt to buy stolen intellectual property, his entire board dissolved the company. He's facing multiple lawsuits from investors, on top of his criminal trial next month. He's completely ruined. He brought it on himself, I murmured. He thought money and shortcuts could replace real integrity. And Maya thought she could trade your heart for a seat at his table, Elena added gently. Are you okay, Leo? Being back out here on this balcony? I turned back to look at the glass doors. This balcony was where Maya and I had stood 4 years ago, drinking cheap wine out of plastic cups and dreaming about building something that would change the world. We had promised each other that we would reach the top together. I said, feeling a strange lightness in my chest. For a long time I thought taking down Julian and Maya was the only way I could win. I thought revenge would fix the heartbreak. And did it? Elena asked quietly. No, I replied, shaking my head. The real victory wasn't watching them fall, Elena. The real victory was realizing that I didn't need either of them to be whole. They took my code, they took my trust, but they couldn't take my talent or my strength. You built yourself back up from zero, Elena said, smiling warmly. That takes more than just smarts. That takes real courage. I didn't do it entirely alone, I said, looking at her with deep appreciation. I had a brilliant team that stayed loyal when everything was tearing apart. Thank you, Elena. For everything. Always, Leo, she said, checking her watch. Now come back inside. The board meeting starts in 10 minutes, and the whole team is waiting for their CEO to outline the future. Tell them I'll be right there, I said. Elena nodded and headed back inside, the glass door sliding shut behind her. I turned back around to look out at the horizon one last time. The morning air was crisp and clean. The sharp pain of betrayal, the anger, and the lingering regret had finally faded away, replaced by a quiet, unbreakable inner strength. I looked down at the empty spot on my hand where a wedding band was once supposed to go. I was free. Vance Tech was mine, my future was mine, and for the first time in my life I was building it entirely on my own terms. I took a deep breath of the cold morning air, turned my back on the empty balcony, and walked inside to start the rest of my life.